How are you?
Good, thank you.
My name is Mildred Barya, and I'm your host tonight, and I'm always excited to see you because it means so much to me and to Malaprops, to all of us, that you left wherever you were and came here to spend your afternoon with us. And what I'm going to do to introduce the poets today is that I will read all their bios and then see, so that when the first reader comes up, once he's done, the next reader will come up. I don't want to keep interrupting the reading because I actually like to have kind of a seamless flow once the reading begins. And I'm excited to introduce all the three, but our first reader is going to be AE Hines, and his debut collection, Any Dumb Animal, received honorable mention in the North Carolina Poetry Society's 2022 Brockman Campbell Book Contest. And it was also a Da Vinci Eye finalist for the Eric Hoffer Book Award. His work has appeared in Alaska Quarterly Review, the Southern Review, Rhino, American Poetry Review, Poetry Law, the Greensboro Review, Ninth Letter, the Missouri Review, and elsewhere. AE Hines was born in and raised in rural North Carolina, but he resides in Charlotte and Medellin, Colombia. And I think it's such a beautiful thing to have two homes to call your home. And the second reader is going to be Barbara Costas-Biggs, and she is a librarian as well as a poet from Southern Ohio. So she's traveling a great distance. Her work has appeared in Appalachian Review, Northern Appalachian Review, the Pikeville Review, 8 Poems, and elsewhere. Barbara's chapbook, The Other Show, was a finalist for the Washburn Prize from Harper Review. She holds an MFA from Queen's University of Charlotte and a master's degree in library and information science from Kent State University. And then our last reader is going to be Sarah Cooper, who is the author of 2 poetry collections, Permanent Marker, and most recently, 89%, which we have right here. Sarah's poems have appeared in Lunch, Sinister Wisdom, Iron Horse, and other anthologies and literary journals. Sarah currently explores how special practices intersect with lesbian identity. She is a professor of gender, sexuality, and women's studies at Clemson University, where she received the Holman Award for Teaching, was a 2021 LGBTQ Faculty Excellence Award winner, as well as a 2022 Jeffrey Award winner for Teaching Excellence and a 2022 TA Corinne Fellow at the University of Oregon. And what I've loved about these 3 books is really what I would call, after reading them, I came out with a theme of brokenness. And then I kept thinking about it, what it is about brokenness that's appealing, attractive, and really seems to make the world a better place. And yet it's coming from this, premise of being broken or having something broken. But I noticed that it's because within brokenness, there is vulnerability, and how wonderful it is to have poets that are able to use words and bring their worlds to us and give us this incredible power of being vulnerable so that we can see both. We can see how we can have grace and compassion through that which is broken, and therefore celebrate the strength that is in all of us. So without taking so much time, AE Hines, you're welcome.
You guys hear me okay? Good. Well, thank you, Mildred, and thank you, Stephanie, and everyone at Malaprop. It's been a dream of mine to be able to read here. It's always a pleasure just to shop here when I come to Asheville. And it's been a great day. Is every summer day this beautiful here? Had some wonderful weather, and I went to the Knuckles Deep barbecue contest that you guys have in town, which was also very good. So I'm going to read a few poems from the book. I'll try to give you a warning when I've got a couple left. This first poem is called My Father's Son. If my father was ever tender, I don't remember. By the time I could forge memories, he'd grown hard, cold, like the hood of his Pontiac on a January morning. Surely he must have changed my diaper or offered me a bottle when my mother's milk ran dry, held me when I cried. Biology has blessed us with the strongest recollection for what to avoid. So I don't know if he ever lifted my little body to the sky or carried me on his shoulders. Instead, I'm left with random sensations. The burn of the electric fence on my uncle's farm, how my father told me to grab hold the naked wire so that I might remember, he said, so that I could learn. I can still make out my uncle's orchard, the sun glinting off the silver leaves, but not the first time I crushed a grape between my teeth or tasted the juices straight from my fingers. Perhaps there's simply too much good to remember, too little space in our brains to hold both the good and bad. When I was 16, overtaken by desire, I first understood what my father thought of me. He said, the saddest son of a bitch he ever knew lived out in the woods with a daughter who longed to be a son, and a son who chased every boy in town. It was the same year he left our family, the year I discovered in his belongings a picture he had taken of me when I was 4. All cherub smile, the sun ablaze in my hair, a photo he must have treasured, since he said he'd kill me before he let me have it. Which is really something when you think about it. The memory of the boy he had seen through the lens, so much better than the real thing standing right there before him. Thank you. I need some water. So, I got married during the pandemic. My husband's here tonight. I'm a very, very lucky man. It's the second marriage for me after a 20-year relationship. And this poem takes place during the dating phase of our relationship. He's from Colombia originally. And so I don't speak Spanish very well. And so I had the opportunity to spend a couple of weeks in Colombia a couple of different times to try to learn. And so this poem is inspired by that. It's called Language Immersion. In the company of my thoughts, I feel more alone than ever before. But after 2 weeks, new words at last glimmer in the mind like freshly minted coins. Others appear or don't as they please, rise up from the ether, present themselves like tattered pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. I call home and my Spanish-speaking lover says it takes time to fit them together, to twist my tongue around his syllables. When I try, each time open my mouth, I imagine he hears a donkey braying at the sky. Still, I try, and somehow we both understand. Strange how words now don't seem so important, when in another life I lived with a man for whom they were everything, who hoarded them like an arsenal. For 20 years, he taught me to sharpen and hurl them like circus daggers. Every night, they flew from our lips like machine gun fire. And now, armed with 2 languages, my mouth, so often an empty chamber, I have neither the need nor desire to reload. And this one, I guess this one I should actually dedicate to Ron DeSantis. It's called A Note to the School Registrar. First, I need you to understand that our son has 2 fathers. And no, I don't mean me and our Lord in heaven. The only star hanging in the sky after his birth, a red blinking beacon of the radio tower on the roof of that bleak Guatemalan hotel. The only women there, not Mary, but Olga, his foster mom, who delivered him sleeping into my anxious arms. No wise men or shepherds, no cattle rustling beyond our beds. I've yet to see him skip across the surface of a summer pond or draw wine from the kitchen faucet. The house runs surprisingly short of bread. You won't find our son praying to one of us behind the football bleachers or atop any stumps preaching to the other students. So for the love of Christ, can you please update your form? It's 2020 in the year of our Lord. My name is not Joseph, my ex, not anyone's God. Our boy is 16, our pronouns he, him, his, and we're fed the fuck up having to decide which father to list as his mother. Which is kind of impressive, 2020. They didn't like the note. I'm gonna read a couple more. So I think I mentioned that I was in a relationship for 20 years. So this next poem, I mean, maybe someone else here has been through divorce. This poem is called Gay Divorce. Only our socks serve two masters. Resting in their disarrayed drawer, our feet close enough in size that laziness, the law of community property, reigned. Why not throw the formal, the athletic, the cotton and wool together? Let them frolic a while. In the sad business of separation, we had no issue deciding who would take the dishes or the furniture. Like the blame, it was the whimsical we found impossible to divide. No one held dominion over any single pair or remembered who stuffed which into whose Christmas stocking. Who first fancied this or that psychedelic pattern or should take the happy polka dot or rainbow stripe, the sequined pictures of reindeer. It would be this orgy of color we'd have such trouble breaking apart. The sad neon marijuana leaves decorated in confetti, the pineapple banana, the sun-faced emoji, the red holiday balls. I'm going to read one more poem, then I'll close with a final. And this poem, it states me, it's called Bohemian Rhapsody 1991. And it has an epigraph from the lyrics by Queen, Mama, life had just begun. When Freddie Mercury was sweating out the fever, fire burning up his blood, I was 21, still in college, dancing in a back alley bar. A place with no street number, no name, a place hidden behind a steel reinforced door so bigots in Carolina wouldn't send us all up in flames. The boy pulling me to the floor, big torch of man, pulled off his shirt to brandish his Navy tattoos. Then placed my quaking hand on the sweaty vault of muscle and skin that shielded the base of his throbbing heart. Over Mercury's yell, he spat the news in my ear, said he had it too, the fire in his blood, asked if I cared, asked if we could both burn up together. News we all feared, expected. Freddie Mercury singing out the last lines, his voice vibrating in our chest, his words pouring out our drunken throats. We college boys and midshipmen, we married men, our wives missing us at home. All of us burning up together in that back alley bar. Each one sure Beelzebub did indeed have a devil put aside just for him. That we'd all be dead by fall. That nothing anymore really mattered. And I'll close with this poem. I thought it was interesting what Mildred said about brokenness. And I think joy takes care of itself. So I think we do linger in things that are not always immediately joyful. And this poem is sort of the hopefulness that we find in, and I hope it's a hopefulness we find even in dissolution. It's called Dog in the Pear Tree. I tell my husband I want to be of use. Like this thin sapling, her roots spreading slow in the shallow earth of our backyard. For years, just a respite where small birds hide from hawks, a few desultory flowers, laden finally with silver white blossoms, the promise of fruit. Our old dog resides for years in the square confines of a red tin, thin print of thorny rose crowning its taped lid. I sprinkle her like a prayer into the concave well dug fresh in our raised bed, then loose the fibrous rope, lower black roots from the burlap sack. I tell my husband, this is what I want. No special parcel, no marker, no need to eat me like a genie in a lamp on his bedside table, or unfurl and waste me in surf and wind. Like the old dog, give me 100 ripening eyes, growing heavy, bowing still tender limbs, the caress of damp fingers, my round seated nubbins plucked season after season, tasted all over again. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Barbara. I'm super excited to be here. My husband and I came here from Ohio for the weekend. We come to Asheville any chance we can get. We love it here so much. And this is just a really special thing for me to be reading here at Malaprop. So I'm really excited. Thank you. So this is the first poem, the front piece from my book. It's called The Doe. Upside down, and you are ensnared in the barbed wire, north side of the pasture, borderland between garden and gully, all the thrash gone out of you. I crouch, show you my hands, farmer without a gun, a hope against hoper that I will never need one of those. I live with my head in the dirt. In spring, I plant rows of lettuce for spoiled cattle, extra corn for raccoons. Do not welcome the fox to the chicken yard, though I defend her. Her kids are hungry. I imagine your last great leap, long legs tucked to belly. You've done it hundreds of times, sailed over fences, brush, down to trees. My missteps haven't yet left me for dead the way yours have. A stroke of your flank, my useless offer of comfort. At eye level, I see you, seeing me. One misstep is the thing you've taught me to avoid, how one moment can change everything. Bunch of papers stuck in here. I like to say that I write with 3 M's in mind, motherhood, memory, and marriage. So this is a poem that I wrote for my husband. I speak to my husband from inside a whale. A blue whale's tongue is heavy as an elephant. Its tail, the wingspan of a propeller plane. Its heart like a Volkswagen, protected by a rib cage that I could move a sofa into, hang art there, pour a beer. My tongue sometimes gets heavy too, uses up excuses and fails again and again. Your name is always there, yet I forget you made me whole. Instead, I tell you how you left flatware in the sink unwashed. Watch how I go deep underwater for days, elude all human contact, wave nothing but that great tail, no trace of above water breathing. Oh, secretive mammal, largest of all, our path propels us far into the distance, only to be called back to the same place again and again. This is called Safeguards. My husband and I, we lived on a farm for a while in Kentucky, a farm that had been in his family for like 100 years. They called it a century farm. So this is Safeguards. I wrote a lot while we lived there. The red-tailed hawk stood, its bird hips splayed, legs muscular like a man, small rodent between them. He stood and did not eat, did not carry the meal away, and I thought about all the blame I placed on hawks after moving here, My flock of hens growing smaller, one at a time, and then one more. As in so many instances, so many loops that run on repeat in my mind, I was dead wrong about the hawk, with his legs like a man's and his talons that hold tight, beak curved like a scythe. It was never the hawk. Of all the precautions I took meant nothing. The barbed wire coiled on the fence posts, the terrible owl decoys, the mirrors dangling from fishing line. I should understand, but I always forget. Safeguards never mean anything. This is a poem I wrote sort of about our town. It's called Small Town Highbun, and it has a line from a poem by Maggie Smith. There is a murder trial happening in the courtroom next to my office. I hear details from the court reporter and the bailiff. I dry heave in the third floor bathroom. Sometimes I think that most kindness I see in the world happens in the Aldi parking lot. Women, some I know are widows, passing their shopping carts on to the next, waving away the offered quarters, asking that they just pass it on. A child, broken, bagged, sunk in a lake, left under a motel bed frame. I'm getting used to life in town again. Streets with sidewalks, school buses stopping at all the corners, the church bells that hand out the hours. Since moving our lives into this house on a corner, across from a limestone church, catty corner from a giant inflatable swan doing back and forth laps in a tiny swimming pool, my sons and I have watched a fawn and its mother eat in our backyard. The doe is a large one, eyes dark and always fixed on her baby. Trash bag, blue cooler, odor so strong the police won't bring it inside. The fawn has slowly lost its spots, the dot to dot peppering its back. It comes into the yard to eat the hawthorn berries dropped from the crooked tree, comes almost to the dining room window. We throw out apple cores for him to find, but I explain to my sons that we don't want him eating from our hands. We leave the food, he finds it. We don't want him to trust us. The world is full of animals, so full of animals. Let's see. Here's another one. Let's do this one. This is called My Dog Lifted His Leg. My dog lifted his leg and pissed on the painter's finished canvas, the housewarming gift he gave us 2 or 3 places ago. We had created and uncreated that still life each time we decided to uproot and start again. There was the house with the catalpa tree, leaves big as my splayed hands together, its seed pods that dangled brown and long like cigars. There was a yellow house on a hill with crumbling cement steps. There you read from long texts and I taught myself to knit. When did the painter fall from our favor, I asked you? Was it when he slammed his vodka, then called us all children? Or when he lost a game of racquetball, a smear of sweat on his cheek and insisted you were cheating? Even after that, I think you sat with him, fishing, silent for hours, but I could be wrong. My memory isn't always to be trusted. I think it was when, secondhand, I heard that he had said he was glad his estranged wife had died from cervical cancer, that she had gotten what she deserved for leaving him. Things can be idyllic and then ugly. A basket of pears and ochre, then piss the same color. Is my time okay, John? Okay. When we were young, we bought things like violas without a second thought. We had lost weekends in Nashville or our tikied out backyard, no regard for hangovers, no need for baby monitors. We wore bathing suits. My skin did not need nightly retinol. When we were young, I didn't feel so dusty, so slow. Now I'm planning for a hysterectomy. In bed, you say things to me like, you don't have to prop your breasts up like that to make them appealing to me. There's no reason I shouldn't believe you, but I don't. When I lie on my back and my breasts slide down to my sides, leaving my chest flat, I feel nothing but bold and laden. It doesn't matter what my body has done. It matters what it does not do anymore. This is called The Release. I'm on the bank of the Pigeon River. The woman upstream is fly fishing. I'm trying to keep my smallish boys in line, quiet to not break her concentration. I've never been a swimming hole type of woman, but this river has one. Swirls blue-green in the sun shards, almost lures me in past my ankles. She casts and the lime green line floats close. She casts and the line moves like a sound wave, even whirs before it splashes. My Greek grandfather tied his own flies, now lost to time and an estate sale. I remember his back better than I remember his face, flannel against the Michigan spring, sitting at the end of his dock on Mona Lake. I grabbed mussels from the shoreline, swatted black flies, watched his large hands bring the rod back, watched its arc, then the release. I lose myself to the kingfisher across the river, watch him and his orange chest hunt from above. And then she does it, almost without me noticing, brings in the fish, river trout, pink-bellied, sleek as a bullet, slips it into her creel. This is another one. Am I okay? All right, last one. All right. This is one that I wrote. Took a long time to write this poem. Just kept like going around and around in my head, and finally, I think I got it right, but you never know, right? So this is called The Same Situation. In my dream, we fought about Joni Mitchell. You saying that blue beats court and spark by a mile, me holding up that pale peach album, the sea stretching to embrace the mountains. And maybe it does, I don't know. But it was the unprompted undulation of my body after hearing those first muted guitar chords of Help Me that sealed it when I was 15, thieving my dad's records and laying belly down on the blue carpet of my suburban bedroom. My dad played it at the Union at Ohio State over and over, he said, trying to follow her chord changes, trying to follow her rhythms. There's no following that, he told me. Awake, you and I don't fight about Joni, but about things less important. My dirty car, the laundry I left in the basket on the stairs. Nobody wants to hear about another's dreams, but I will tell you anyway. The clouds hung low, and a heron beat against a strong wind, flapping but unmoving.
Hi, thank you for being here. I'm going to talk a little bit about this book before I start reading because it unintentionally is a little complicated. So I wrote a poem called 22 Truths or Advice from the Matriarch, which was a list poem, which turned into the skeleton of this book. And so it was a poem of different bits of advice that my mother had given me throughout my first, we'll say 28 years. And then she was diagnosed with colon cancer when I was 29 years old, and she lived a few years after that. And so in trying to put this book together, I didn't want to ignore her and just write about her. I wanted to tell her story, but not tell it in my words. And so the best way for me to do that was to intersperse this poem throughout the book. And so there's a few pages throughout here where there's just a floating line. And so if I read a poem that is preceded by one of those lines, I will read the line first and then I'll read the poem. So this first poem that I'm going to read does have one of those floating lines. And the line is, everything is temporary except red wine stains and stretch marks. My mother as lymph nodes and liver lesions. As the doctor exits the exam room, she reaches for my hand. I pull her entire body onto my lap as she stares at the gastrointestinal diagram, like it's a map of the stars, searching for constellations, seeing only glands, tissues, and organs. She whispers, "Do I need my liver to live?" I stare at her, feel her pelvic bones press into my thighs, her hands interlocking around my shoulders like she's a child asking if she has to get the flu shot. "Let's try to keep it," I offer. I smell the loose skin on the back of her neck, watch a vein pulse, trace a map clavicle to lymph node. And because nothing happens in a vacuum, this book is not just about her and being ill. This is also a bit of a coming out story. I came out very young in life, but we never stop coming out, I think we all know. If you don't know that, lucky for you, you don't experience that. But for the rest of us, we always are coming out for something, whether that's sexuality, disability, religion, whatever it might be. And so these poems are also interspersed with various stories of my life as a queer lesbian woman. And the sixth poem was inspired after reading too much Gertrude Stein. I really like Gertrude Stein. I think she really gets underestimated and underthanked for coining the Birkenstocks and the wool socks. That was her. And so I really like her concept of the continuous presence, which is that nothing ever happens again and again. We are never beginning again. We are just beginning. And so she plays with this concept of repetition in that way, and thinking about repetition as a way that's not necessarily repetitious, but insistence. So this poem also has one of those floating lines. Tent camping, dancing on bars, and skinny dipping are always fun, but do it when you're young. The recovery is hell when you're old. Cannonball. One, cannonballing was how I met her. Mess of salt surfer strands, sunshine sprigs flying, a wave grin bounce back to grass slivers, to bleak ground. I imagine her years later, cannonballing, body rolling across Caribbean cliffs, tromping on trails, laughter bellowing, palm trees echoing the boom. Did you want to cannonball from that cliff? You know, the one everyone else could merely rope swing from. What if I were swimming by? What if I were drowning? 2, technique. If you tuck hard and clasp arms around shins, hold opposite leg with hand, and push your head toward your knees, your ass will splat perfectly on the surface. Your ass splatting the surface being splat by your ass. As asses splat, yours would surpass the splats before. I am watching your ass to see the splattering splashes from your ass. There are droplets on my toes from your ass. This is what a hard tuck gets you. All right, I'm gonna read this next poem. It's a little bit of a library poem. It's my friend Dawn who came up to this reading today. So thank you for being here. And it's for Barbara too, because you're also a librarian. So this is for you too. Comes with a line before it. Regifting is a gift. Again. What I took to be a bookshelf, half vacant, vertical lines, jutting and cutting space turned out to be a floating staircase. Spiraled like a deck of cards mid-shuffle. What I wanted to be tea steeping at dawn was really candle flame of wick burning into glass. It was my wanting coercing me, begging me to see what couldn't be, what never was. My wanting making wine corks into crayons, shifting curtains into scarves, and it was this wanting that controlled me. What I imagined to be a poem in my pocket was really a soiled tissue, And when I thought I heard, how many times can you really start? I responded again, but there was no voice. I want to say we are being honest, which is to announce we are making silence in a library. But here I am, back to wanting books on shelves. If I let air slip slowly through pursed lips, I can hear the footsteps ascending stairs, a whisper from sole of foot to step, and I can see a splinter erect in the corner near spindling wood. I place left hand to railing, guide fingers to grip, make a fist around the iron cylindrical metal. I climb, call your name, find you there, sleeping in a bed I wish I had never known without you. So this next poem is a little bit of a found poem. And when my mom was terminally diagnosed for the last time, there were lots of potential studies she could be enrolled in. And I couldn't make sense of a lot of them. And so I just started taking them apart and writing poems with them. And so there's a few lines that are in here that are direct quotations from one of those studies. And so I'll do an air quote whenever I'm using those lines. And this poem also comes with a floating line before. Your dad's family is special, so treat them as such, special people who should be caged, studied and documented, but never set free. The study. Someone wants to study your body, not the way I study bodies, in a way that dissects your tissues, syringes your blood, and slides cells under microscopes. They want to watch your cancer stem cells grow. In addition to the treatment described in this consent form, the study sponsor would like to store blood and tumor samples for future scientific research studies. Where will you be stored? May I come pull the vial labeled Colleen Margaret Willett Cooper 9/19/1952 from its cabinet when your specimens are all that remain, when I need you to tell me how to fold a fitted sheet or the amount of time one should work with pastry dough. And this is the last poem that I'm going to read. This poem was one that kind of like made me think I can actually make a book out of these. And it was published in Iron Horse about a year after my mother had passed. It's called Centered. Once I read the heart pumps 2,000 gallons of blood every day. My mother always had a gallon of milk in the fridge. She would pour it in thick mason jars at dinner over ice. My milk should be perfectly chilled to be consumed, she would say. Wouldn't drink it any other way, made me drink 2 glasses daily as I refused to be breastfed for the first month of life. Newborn babies have the fastest heart rate, the pediatrician told my mother. She heard there's an organ tied to hummingbird wings in your daughter's thoracic. The tie-dye t-shirt I wore until someone peeled it from me smelled of vinegar and indigo, rings punching across cotton fabric. In 5th grade, I learned an adult heart is the size of a fist and situated in the middle of one's chest. That felt fitting to remember when my mom died. Not from heart cancer, which is rare since heart cells stop dividing, less room for error, for mutation. Either way, the heart still beats 115,000 times a day. When mom's stopped, mine wanted to sink to hers, the way a horse's heart can mirror a human's. I don't like all these feelings, I finally acknowledged to my doctor. Your heart can beat outside your chest, they insisted. I responded, then take it out. Thank you.
Let's appreciate them once more. Thank you so much for that wonderful reading. And now we will move into the time of signing books. And this is our last poetry reading of the year. So I look forward to seeing you in 2023 on January 8th. You can mark it on the calendar. But for now, let's go and get the books, and the poets are ready to do the signing. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us.